Okay, first, some information about the place. The region is old. I'm talking ancient. One of the oldest Mesolithic settlements in Europe was found there, in a gorge made by the Danube River. That place was swept under the waves. Then the Romans came, declared the place the edge of their empire, built a huge bridge and a fortress there to defend themselves against their invaders. The bridge was also swept under the waves. Then the Turks came and built a fortress there. Part of the fortress was swept away, and their graveyard ended up underwater. When the Second World War ended, the commies found several struggling villages in the gorge, and decided to flood them in order to build a nearby dam. The waters are so treacherous that ship captains fucking dread going through the gorge if they don't have a local with them. And because of how ridiculous the weather is, whenever there's rain or snow, there are landslides and floods everywhere. A year or two ago, a massive landslide wrecked an entire town and laid bare a graveyard that we didn't even know was there. And people report almost every year strange shit that the flood dug out. From dead cows, to monuments, to who the fuck knows what. They had to stop a hydro plant turbine one time because of dead shit that was clogging it. I went in the woods with a couple of friends after a huge landslide, and we saw some weird sticks sticking out of the mud. We later realized those were the tops of the trees, buried under the mud. You see the pattern. And, of course, there are whirlpools everywhere. These tie in with the story, which I should really get to it, because according to the local legends, the whirlpools are actually water devils. Because they were everywhere, the locals told their kids to stay away from the water, or to at least not go deep. Each year, there ends up being a couple of drowned kids, usually drunk tourists who decide to go swimming at night. But occasionally, you end up with a drowned fisherman. Anyway, on to the rural legend. The story says that after World War II, the whole region was in absolute ruins. It was the place where the Russians crossed the border, so, of course, there was carnage everywhere. The local families fled for their lives ages ago, and were now coming back to what little remained of their homes. One of those families returns and finds that their grandma was still there, alive, kicking, and fucking angry. She told them to start working on the land because she was tired from burying the dead with her own two hands. The family obliges because there's something clearly changed with Grandma since they last saw her. For starters, she isn't fucking dead. Time passes and Granny refuses to die. The family starts thinking about what to do in the future, and the Granny suggests or orders that they'll open up a butcher shop. "Where are we gonna get the meat?" they ask. She tells them not to worry about that and comes back later that day with a slaughtered cow, and so on and so forth. Meanwhile, stories start popping up about whirlpools popping up out of nowhere, sudden drownings, and monster sightings in the water. And each time someone notices that something's missing, the grandma would come up the next day with fresh meat. So, her grandson and his best friend, kids at the time, decided to investigate these rumors. They followed Grandma to the river where she strips naked and starts chanting. Then, the stench hits them, rotten and wet, and out of the water, a humanoid figure emerges. A frog-like head on top of a human body, pale green skin, huge bulbous eyes, rows upon rows of teeth. The Vlachs call it the Water Devil. The South Slavs call it Vodnik. You've probably heard it being called Vodyanoi. Grandma demands more meat, and the creature tells her in a gurgle how the deal is off. She was followed, and it wants those who followed her. The two kids start running away, with Grandma chasing after them. Her skin now looks like tree bark, her eyes huge and bloodshot. Her limbs are twice the size they were before, and she's screaming at them in an ungodly tongue. She grabs her grandson and realizes who spied on her. Apparently, family ties are still important to these hags, and she lets him go. The kid returns home, fucking terrified, and his grandma is sitting there waiting for him. The family business is over because of him, and she can no longer provide food for them. They have to move to the next town and start over, because now everything in the water is after them. And because Grandma told them to get the fuck away, they can't say no. So far, the family with the witch in them is still around. They still run a butcher shop, and they're still terrified of stepping near the waters, because they have an impressive death by drowning ratio. And that's the story about the local hag thing.